Hi, I'm Randy Hollenbeck, and this is the Music Roundtable. Today on the show, we have Ben from the Kahone Concept.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
It's not that I'm lonely, it's more that I'm half a thought away from being so grossly invested in my most oppressive feng shui. And yeah, I can say things, but give it tomorrow and I'll be right back to the part where I started and blame everybody but me.
Thanks for coming on. I just wanted to start off by digging into a little bit of history. What got you into music? And I know you're also a producer. What got you into doing that?
Yeah, so where I grew up, basically like a cornfield. It's called Oil City, PA. It's not a super big place, and so when it came to finding other people that were also interested in making music, it was kind of tough. And so eventually, I just reached a point where I'm like, well, people are making stuff with like laptops now and playing shows with laptops, so maybe that can be my band member. And then so I just started to record, and since I couldn't find a singer, because I wanted to be like a guitarist in like a rock band, but since I couldn't find anyone, I had to just kind of become all the parts. And then so from recording and stuff like that, just over the years, I reached a point where like I went to a studio and I realized, wait a minute, like I kind of like being the nerd behind the console and like making the decisions. So after that, I decided that I didn't have an excuse to like not pursue producing, because before it was like, well, I'm not working with like a real producer, so like the quality's not going to be there. I reached a point and I was just like, you know what? I don't have an excuse. I want to the be the guy making those decisions, and there's not a reason with the amount of YouTube tutorials out there that I can't try to be making stuff on a professional level, especially now with MacBooks and like everything being so accessible and cheap, compared to like back in the day when you like truly did have to go to like $1 million studio just to be able to like get a quality recording. And so the stars kind of aligned, and I just kind of fell into that niche, and now I'm in love with like the whole process. Um, Between recording, writing, and like the live setup, like I just kind of reached a point where I could kind of do a little bit of everything. I'm not necessarily good at one thing. I just kind of have the knowledge of all these random things, just because music to me is just as much about like picking out XLR cables as it is like writing songs. Like it's all part of the experience. And so to be able to kind of put that into one project, um, it's kind of created this weird fixation for me where like it's turned the Cajon concept into not just music, but kind of like uh, a portrayal of my life, or like kind of just almost like my life's work into one like specific thing. And I don't know, it's just been weird seeing it develop over the years, going from just wanting to be in a band to it becoming something more meaningful to myself than I could have like ever imagined. But that's the long roundabout answer. I apologize.
Now, when you go into the studio, though, it's kind of like you're bouncing ideas off of each other. If you're working alone, is there somebody that you bounce ideas off of?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something that part of getting to the next level when it came to producing was learning that collaboration is key. So my best friend Caleb Kopta and I have kind of like my small group of people that like I'll take criticism from anyone or opinions from anyone, like it's welcomed. If I show someone a song and they're honest with me and they're like, yeah, I don't really like that, or I don't like that part, that to me is more valuable than, oh yeah, that sounds nice, because you know what I mean. Like whenever people give me real feedback, I know I can trust them, and so I kind of have a small circle of people around me that I'll send things to, and if they say something, then like I'll go back and I'll get it right until like it gets their approval, and usually like that hasn't led me wrong yet. Um, so it's definitely important to work with other people. But for my workflow, instead of them being there directly beside me per se, in the studio, because I record everything at home now, it's more so I'll take it to where I think I can get it on my own, and then I'll go back as kind of like a review process, and then like get the opinions of everyone, and then I'll go back in, and everyone's process is different, but for me, that's what I found works pretty well.
Yeah, you just go back in and like fine tune everything and
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of the times, if I don't get that outside perspective, the song, in my mind, it'll seem finished. But then, like, I'll go back through, like, some of my older stuff, I'll go back through and think, wow, I wish I would have done what someone said. Or, wow, I'm really glad I did what someone said because that helped it, like, cross the finish line. Like, with my album cover the album I just put out, The Greatest Hits. I knew what I wanted for the cover, and for the past like year, I've been going to Goodwills and scanning and taking pictures of all these random greatest hits vinyls from just like so many random like artists and stuff. And so I came up with the album like on my own, but just something didn't seem finished about it. So I went to my one friend that's a graphic designer, and I'm like, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I don't know how to get it to the finish line." And so once I sent it to him, he was able to like see my vision and like fill in the gaps for me. And then what he sent back was like this exactly what I was trying to do. So like that's another like benefit of like collaborating. Like whenever I say like get it across the finish line, that album cover didn't feel done to me. I knew something was off, and I could have spent weeks like tinkering, and it still wouldn't have felt right. But like I always say like sometimes like a sandwich tastes better if you don't make it. If someone when someone makes a sandwich for you, it always tastes better than if you make it yourself. You know, there's like something like that secret sauce to it, and that's kind of how I view like collaborating with people.
okay. Who are some of your musical influences?
I I like to say that I'm a Coldplay ripoff band at this point. I love Coldplay, like their old stuff. So like A Rush of Blood to the Head, X and Y. Those two albums are like two of my all-time favorite albums. My older stuff, so songs like Maybe and High Low are very like influenced by Coldplay. This greatest hits album has been more it's shifted, so it's less like alt rock and more pop. So it was heavily influenced by like Wild Cherry and like Al Green and ABBA and like Earth, Wind and Fire. So like a lot of like disco-y. And Dua Lipa was someone that like I kind of used to bridge the gap between those old records in a modern pop sound. And I think Dua Lipa and her songs and like the producer she works with do a great job of like her album's called like one of her albums called Future Nostalgia, and I think that's a really good way to describe it. Is it's heavily influenced off of like Motown disco records, but like the way it's produced is such a modern approach that you can tell it wasn't recorded in like the 70s, like it's current. And so I tried to kind of emulate that and kind of borrow, that workflow from them. So at the end, you end up with like a Coldplay, Dua Lipa, Wild Cherry, disco kind of like fusion thing there.
Now, you, you just released your CD, and was it like a goal for you to do like a song a month?
Yeah. So I had made two songs called Amicably and No But Kinda, and I put them out. And up until that point, like I didn't really have a solid release plan. I was just like, okay, when I'm done with this song, I'll put it out. And then I kind of stepped back and looked over the past like 7 years or so, and I'm like, I really don't have that much music out. And so, oh, sorry, my phone is getting blown up. I don't know how to keep people from interrupting. Um, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I forget what I was saying because that distracted me.
About the song a month thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I look back and I'm like, I really don't have that much music out, and there's no reason why I can't like try to at least have like an album out by next year. And then one thing Caleb and I do is kind of overcommit to things, like overpromise and underdeliver. And so I'm like, okay, I want an album out, and then I'm like, well, how's that going to happen? I'm like, the only way that's going to happen is if I start like today and I do a song a month, and that'll give me 12 songs. And then so I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I'll do a song a month, like a song that doesn't exist. That way, it's like a practice thing for me to get better at producing and songwriting. And one of the hardest things about producing and songwriting is like knowing when to let go and say like, okay, this is done. And giving yourself that time constraint forces you to be like, okay, we need to move on. This is going to have to be good enough. On to the next thing. Whatever new skill I learned and I wanted to incorporate in this song, I can always do it on the next one, and just we'll make the next one better. And that's kind of the thought process I had through it. So each month I was like learning on the fly some new stuff. And then by the end of the album, I had kind of fallen into a pocket where it wasn't I was just way faster than like what I was at the start, and that was the goal, to just like practice and become better than a better producer. Um, and then once I had the 12 songs, it's like, well, what would be funny is if the debut album we called the Greatest Hits, and since all the songs were already previously released, like Hits albums are already songs that have been out, just re-released. So I'm like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Let's do it. And it was fun. It falls within like the brand name, you know. So. A year later, here we are. We got held up with it, the greatest hits, and it's finally out, which is crazy because it was just an idea, and that, like kind of blink and then it's done. Like I'm already itching to make another one.
Now you just had your show at the Thunderbird. Can you tell us something about that and about the reception and how you came to create the whole atmosphere?
Yeah. So we did the release show at Thunderbird Music Hall, and it was the turnout was fantastic. I was really shocked because whenever my manager Adam had like brought up the idea of doing a headliner, I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but like I don't know if anyone's gonna come to this thing. Like it's scary renting out a venue and then like because it's not just like me and my team at that point. Then you get like Drusky Entertainment involved, WYEP, Thunderbird Music Hall, which has like their bartenders and their staff, and then like lighting directors, sound guys. Like it's not just me at that point. So like there's kind of a pressure, and so like if I were to not take it seriously, like I feel like I'd be letting some people down. Like not even the music listeners. Like aside from people showing up, like just at its core, like these people are 100% going to be involved. Like I don't know who's going to come, but I want to do my best to make sure it's worthwhile for everyone that's like doing me a favor and taking the time to work the event. And then the people that do decide to come, like I want it to be worth their while, with how expensive everything is right now. Like the idea of spending money on a concert's a hard decision for anyone, especially whenever like groceries are super expensive, rent's all time high. Like everyone's got to like cut back and make decisions on what's worth spending or what we're able to spend money on right now. And for people to choose concert tickets, during a time like this, and my concert in particular, like I wanted to make sure I gave it 1,000% and like tried to think of everything that I could to truly do my best to make sure that it was the greatest show. And the greatest show, like the name at first, like it was just kind of like a funny play on like the greatest hits. And then I was kind of afraid to come across as like cocky. Like I didn't want it to be like when I say the greatest show, like, oh, I'm better than everyone else. Like this is gonna be great no matter what. Blah blah blah. It started out as just a play on words, and then once I realized all these things, it became a goal. It wasn't like me saying like I'm like going to do the greatest show. It's like no, like I'm gonna work as hard as I can, and with all the resources I have, like just whatever I can make work, do what I can to put on the greatest show that I can. That's more of like the approach, more than me saying like, "Hey, I'm so good," blah blah blah. So hopefully it wasn't perceived as that from people. But yeah, I can't believe how it turned out. Like it was everything that I could have hoped for. The place was so packed.
I wanted to talk about a couple songs off that album. And the first one is Who Cares If I Sing? And there's a line that like stood out to me in that every second, minute, hour, time plays tricks on me. Can you tell me a little bit about the song and about that lyric and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for noticing that detail. That's one of the songs that so originally I was gonna make the album just 9 songs and pick the best of the 12 and cut 3 out. That way it was just like a solid 9 track. But then I thought it would be like kind of more true to the art if I kept all 12 as like a way of saying like at my core this is what I can do. And Who Cares If I Sing was one of the songs that I contemplated cutting. Just because like I didn't feel super strong about it. Like the song means a lot to me, but I didn't know how it felt in the grand scheme of the album. And I'm so glad I kept it because what I realized is like the album to me is a concept album of like the whole greatest hits and like the song a month thing. But what I noticed was the second concept to it is from the start to the finish, it tells the story of my relationship with music and how like on the front there's like this like whole gimmicky aspect of Kahone Concept and like the confidence and like it's almost like I'm playing a character, and so like that's where like Kung Fu Cajon comes. And then as the songs go on, like they start off like super confident and sassy, and then by the end of the album, it feels like kind of how I feel a lot of the times whenever I sit back and think like, is anyone even like into what I'm doing? Like, am I even half as good as like what like I think I might be or like what I can be? And the older you get, music becomes like whenever you're in high school or college, everyone's like, heck yeah, you're making music. But as you get older, it becomes seen as like kind of this immaturity thing to a lot of people, where it's like, hey man, like it's cool that you're making music, but like, how the heck are you like affording rent or like affording a mortgage or affording bills? Like, you gotta like think about your future. And then there's that pressure of looking around you and everyone growing up and like it puts doubt in your head. And so when it comes to making music, every day you wake up, you feel like there's a pressure you're fighting against the clock. Where it's like, if I don't make it now, then like what, when, like what will happen? And what I've realized is I don't think there is. Obviously, there's such a thing of making it where like you might be like Post Malone or whatever, but making it is such a subjective thing. I kind of restructured how I viewed it and what success meant to me. And success to me is showing up, doing my best, and truly feeling in my heart that I'm just as capable as like the pros out there that are doing these worldwide tours, but like I don't need the numbers to prove it. I don't need that outside validation to be able to be honest with myself and know that I'm working super hard. So if I just keep doing what I'm doing, by the time I'm like 60, 70, 80, however long I live, the goal is that like I'm going to make so much music, and looking forward to that is just really exciting. Like all the songs I haven't made yet, like I don't need a reason to make them. Like loving music enough is the reason. So that pressure every day of waking up, of like every second, every minute, every hour, feeling that pressure, like time really takes a toll on your mental state whenever you start comparing, like, you value your self-worth to how far your music has gotten in terms of like numbers and like social credibility. And that's kind of what Who Cares If I Sing is about, like that kind of like devil in the back of my mind and self-doubt, like what's this all for, like who cares, you know what I mean? So that's where that came about.
Don't wanna let go. I don't wanna let go. I don't want to let go. Please don't make me let go. Waiting, listen now, it's ticking. How's it gonna be? Every second, minute, hour of time plays tricks on me. Waiting, listen now, it's ticking. How's it gonna be? Every second, minute, hour of time plays tricks on me.
Um, the next song is called "It's Safe to Say I Have Regrets," and it starts out with like guitar picking, and then it builds towards the end to where the drums and there's like some kind of effect going on, and you're singing over it, and even it starts out, "I can't live with how I spent my youth." Like you have regrets, it sounds like.
Yeah, and a big question when I put that one out, a big question from people has been like, well, it sounds like something very specific happened. And it's not so much as one specific event as much as it is me looking back on my life and like seeing videos of like, I was definitely like a class clown or wannabe class clown, and just like so many moments I could have took into consideration and should have taken into consideration, like how I made other people feel, or like maybe I showed more patience with people, or like maybe I reacted differently, like because whenever you're like, I don't know, whenever you're a kid, you everything is relative to you, so like you'd really believe what you're doing is like the right thing. And then as you grow older and you get an experience under your belt, you look back and think, whoa, man, like I didn't understand the full picture. Like if I just look at that one little tiny little part, like sure, the way I acted makes sense. But once you like zoom out and like you really see all the things at play, like it's just important to show compassion to other people. And like my goal in life is to be the kindest, best person I can be. And I'm not saying that I am. Like I can be pretty nasty, and like it's something I work for every day. It's just a goal like that I'm trying to achieve and I'm working towards. And so it's safe to say I have regrets is kind of acknowledging that there is a lot of the way that I've acted in the past that bothers me. And I struggle a lot with like mental health stuff, and I get in my own head. And my biggest worry is that I've tricked myself into thinking like, oh, I say these things like, yeah, I want to be a good person, or yeah, I'm always working, like, but like, what if like deep down, like I'm just like manipulative, or like deep down I don't say what I mean or mean what I say, and then like I go like I start to spiral, and then like I get in this like super like depressing like mindset where like I look back and like that's what I wanted the song to represent, where it starts out as like kind of like me sitting kind of like almost like a self-pity thing, like reflecting, like feeling like sad and just like mellow, and then it picks up the more I think about it, and then it just turns into like this frustration where like I've definitely felt in my life where like just like living feels like overwhelming, and you just feel like ticked off and frustrated at yourself, and like you feel like helpless, like there's nothing you can do. And so I wanted like the instrumental to that song to kind of represent that. So that's kind of where I have it build up. And then like the chorus is like the I can't uh oh my gosh, I'm blanking right now. Um uh I can't live with how I treat myself. I can't handle, I might kill myself. It's safe to say I have regrets. Like I wanted it to be like this big explosion of like everything all at once, and then like the cool sounds underneath. It sounds like a guitar, like the dun, 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 dun. And that's not even a guitar; it's a synth sound, but like I distorted it. So like I wanted it to feel and like take the place of a guitar, but like my first couple EPs, my goal was to be able to make music without any guitars, just because guitars and like modern music are like back in the day when Mozart was around, piano was like how guitar is now. So it's like a challenge to try to make a rock song without guitar. And there is guitar in that song, but it's just like a mini ode to my previous work where like I wouldn't use guitars. So it was like a workaround. So it was just like a little like Easter egg for myself, I suppose. And it became one of like my favorite songs on the album, just because like it has like a weird, like a really cool mid-range sound to it.
I can't live with how I spend my youth. I'm not proud of how I treated you. And now that I'm grown, it replays again in my head. I guess it's all part of what makes me who I am.
I wanted to ask you how you songwrite. Do you like come up with like a beat? Do you have like a little melody on the keyboard? Do you write lyrics? How do you begin to write a song?
So it's different pretty much every time. I don't really have a sacred ritual or anything. It's more so I go with what I feel, and songwriting became a lot easier once I kind of surrendered to the idea of I'm the person making it. Because like if you're sitting down, you're like, okay, I want to write a song. I'm like, okay, how does a song come about? And I'm like, okay, well, songs have lyrics, they have a melody. I'm like, okay, so how should I make the melody go? And then like you overthink it, and then like now, like, and there's so many musicians, and I feel like non-musicians even can relate, where like sometimes you can hear songs, or maybe when you listen to a song for the first time, you can kind of guess where it's gonna go, and then like you can already hear it in your head. And so now I just follow that like first knee jerk reaction. So what a lot of what I do is I'll sit down maybe with an acoustic guitar, and I'll just like pick like a random chord progression or maybe at a piano, and I'll press record on my voice memos, and I'll just kind of like mumble over some stuff, maybe some melodies come here and there, and then I'll go back and I'll listen to it, and then I'll kind of try to have that fresh ears where like it's the first time I'm listening to it, and I'll try to like guess where like it's gonna go, and then I can just start to hear like, oh yeah, like this is that kind of song, like this is gonna be one of those like alt rock kind of songs where like there's like this guitar based where I'm like, oh, this is gonna be like one of those pop songs where it's like super clean production, and then so it doesn't really feel like I'm making it. I'm just kind of following the lead of like instincts, you know. So at the end of it you end up with a product where you're like, oh wow, like this isn't something that I feels like I would have normally made, but like technically you did make it, like it, but it doesn't feel like it came from you. It's kind of a weird concept, but it's true. I know a lot of other musicians that like kind of have a similar workflow.
Now, for the lyrics and stuff, do you like envision a story in your head?
Yeah, that's one of the more tricky parts, because I've always wanted my songs to mean something, and I think the world has enough love songs. It's an easy, I think it's an easy cop out songwriting wise to do a love song just because the material is all already there. It's so easy to like mix and match existing songs and make a great song. And in my earlier works, I really honed in on like self reflection and like mental health stuff. And for this greatest hits album, what I wanted to do was get out of my comfort zone and start writing about things that I hadn't written about before, which this album is like really based off of life experiences in the sense of like maybe not something specific happened, but like say for example like Hey Have It Your Way, one of the songs off the album. Like everyone has had a conversation with someone where they're like, "Hey, what do you want to do today?" And you're like, "Oh, I don't care." And they're like, "No, like tell me what you want. Like I want you to pick. That's why I asked." And then you're like, "Okay, how about this?" And then they're like, "No, I don't want to do that." And it's like, Why'd you bother asking?" So like, I'll try to be like super aware of in the moment when things like that happen, and then I'll go back and I'm like, "Okay, that is that's the base of the story. Now, how do I fill that in and provide context and make the like I'm done trying, it's up to you, you don't care what I want to do, hey, have it your way. How do I make that make sense? And then so I go back and I fill it in. And so a lot of the songs off the album are like that. Same thing with like In One Year and Right Out the Other. Like we've all had a time where something's like close to us and someone comes around with like an unsolicited opinion. Like I said before, I do appreciate opinions. I love getting feedback, but sometimes there's a time and a place, and especially when it comes from someone that you know doesn't actually care about what you're doing. Some people just like to yap. It's like, thanks man, that's great. How about you do your own thing and you can do all the ideas you want, and you know they're not going to because they don't actually care about it. So like it's easy to not want to like listen to that kind of like feedback, and so that's what like In One Ear is about, and so many other songs on the album kind of follow that structure.
Okay. What's your plans for the rest of the year?
It's a great question. It's currently something we're undergoing because the past year we kind of we knew what we wanted, which was an album release and an album release show, and it was kind of like the point of the mountain. And this year, it was really easy to focus on that, and that's where all our energy went. And for me, it's a really important time in my life because I'm getting older now, and then like I'm getting married this month, and like the natural progression of life is, starting. And so for me, there was a lot of pressure where it felt like this is kind of like my final hoorah. Like I'm never gonna have as much time in my life as I do now. Like in the future, once like kids get involved, and like right now, I'm basically already married. Like we live together and we've been together a while, and like I don't think much is gonna change on that front. But once you like bring in new elements, like I bought a house this year, and I'm working on that. Like I can definitely feel pressure from living a normal life, like kind of taking away of the time that I have it doing music stuff. So I told myself I want to get an album out because Lord knows what's going to happen, and I want to look back on this year and know that I did everything I possibly could with this time. And at the start of the year, to be honest, not a lot of people were looking at the project. So um, now that there's like this shift, I wanted to be able to say that like I did everything, and so I worked kind of towards that album and that release show. And at the beginning of this project, there wasn't a whole lot of ears on it, but one thing that doing a song a month has really helped is kind of earn the trust from all of uh, all of like the local bands, the local music supporters, the local radio stations. They kind of started to look at it like, hey, like this guy's actually like doing what he said he was going to do. And a lot of the times, like it's easy to want to like go to these outlets and say, hey, I'm putting out an album or I'm putting out a song. Can you put me on your radio station? And as much as these local outlets want to support, there's only so much time that they can give to local support because at the end of the day, they're businesses as well. Like they have their own like day to day tasks that they got to deal with. And so there's only so much space that they can allot for, providing local support. So whenever you have all these people coming at them, it's hard to decide. They want to invest in who they think is going to be worthwhile or who's actually going to show up, because I think the reality of a lot of bands is they'll get excited and they'll put all their eggs in one basket, and like when that doesn't pan out, like the band breaks up or like they don't stick around. But when people see someone that they believe isn't going anywhere, then they're more inclined to like want to get behind and support it. And so over this year, I think I've seen a lot of things result from that. And now we're looking going into the next year like, holy crap, like this felt like kind of like a last hoorah. Not because no matter what, I'm always gonna be making music, but like the amount of time I dedicated, like I made a lot of sacrifices this year. It felt like a last hoorah, but now it's like, wait a minute, people are starting to like listen to this, and like people are starting to get behind this, and like something's happening. So it's like, what is next? Like, okay, like we have this opportunity now. There's some momentum. Like, let's keep the ball rolling. So I knew that I wanted to take like a week off to just like relax and kind of reconvene. But I'm already itching to get in the studio and make more songs, and I'm already thinking about like the next show and like the next phase for Kahone Concept. And we got some really cool gigs lined up. One of them I just announced today, which was cool. It's a really cool gig. It's at Stage AE with a band called Guster. So that'll be cool to return there. That was always the dream, to play there, like, and so to be able to do it again, because I did last year with Jude in the Line, but to be asked to come back and like be trusted to be local support and kind of represent the locals, opening for like a national act at such a big venue. I'm really stoked about. And then I have another show this summer. It's not announced and I can't talk about it just because um, there's like on the back end of things, like you got to give each show the attention it deserves. So like from a promoter aspect, if I announce this next show, maybe it'll take away from this show, and whenever I agree to like take on like my goal for these people that have me on, I want to be able to make, hopefully bring the most amount of people that I can and make it worthwhile for them. So I can't really talk about the other gig, but it's a big gig like that, and I'm really excited about it. And so we want to kind of use those big gigs to kind of piggyback off of all the momentum we've built, and hopefully use it to kind of transition into this next year of maybe doing something similar to what we did this past year, and then just kind of seeing where that goes. And then maybe next year we'll be like, holy crap, like we still have more momentum. Let's see.
Yeah, yeah. Um, where can we get a hold of you? Facebook, Instagram?
Yeah, I'm all over the place these days. So whenever I made the band name Cajon Concept, um, believe it or not, making a band name is one of the friggin' hardest things about starting a band, because it feels so cheesy, and it just, you go through so many iterations. And one thing that I kind of thought of was like, I remember watching like New Year's Eve, um, like Carson Daly introducing a band, and it was Walk the Moon, and he's like, and now like Walk the Moon, and then I was thinking like, okay, that was kind of a test for me, like I would take these names and picture Carson Daly like saying like, and now so and so. And whenever I came across the name Cajon Concept, I'm like, and now Cajon Concept, I'm like, that doesn't feel as awkward to me. And so the way that name came about was like a cajon, like the drum. Like I built a drum and wood shop, and I wanted to kind of, since I was just starting out and no one knew what my band was called. One, most people spell cajon that don't know how to spell it Kahone. And so I'm like, maybe I'll get some stragglers trying to Google what a cajon is, and then they'll like stumble upon my music. And then I went through like a phase where I didn't like the name, and then now I'm back to liking it because like it fits. It sounds ridiculous. The name like Cajon spelled the way concept. You're like, what the heck is that? It fits the branding. But one perk to it is it does Google really nicely. So if you type in Cajon, Kahone, on like Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, TikTok, Snapchat, like all everything. It's the same across the board. It'll pop up because the name wasn't taken, so I was able to make it the same across all of them. So just wherever, type it in, and I should be the only thing popping up.
That's all the questions I have. Thanks for coming on the show today. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Of course. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out and getting me on. Any opportunity I have to share my music or talk about with anyone, like I really appreciate. It's such a pleasure for me because like I'm locked in these rooms with this stuff, and as much as my family and friends support, like they can only hear the same songs and talk about this stuff so often, and I totally get that. So for someone to reach out and be interested and want to talk about these things, it means the world to me that someone else is using their time to like think about what I'm making. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate it.